Welcome to the DIY Try or Buy podcast with Yiesha and Mee Hee.
We've created a space where listeners and viewers can explore beyond their comfort zone. We'll be engaging in discussions and tackling DIY projects.
We'll also try new things and buy new quality products that will enhance your way of life. So please subscribe, like, and share, and join us every Thursday for the podcast you didn't know you needed.
Welcome back to join us. This is episode 4
of DIY Try or Buy.
This is going to be an interesting one.
It is because, let's see, episode 1, we shared a little bit about ourselves. Episode 2, we talked about the framework of how our podcast would run. Episode 3, we talked about church and Mee Hee had us crying. And then this episode, it's actually a good fit because we talked about church, we talked about our relationship with God in that relation, in our situations and our different paths at this point, and now we're talking about authenticity. Mm-hmm. What was our title?
Is being your authentic self realistic?
Say that again for the people in the back.
Is being your authentic self realistic?
I don't know.
Can you answer that?
No. I can answer. No.
I would agree.
It all depends on where you are. If you work for someone, and I think we both have worked for corporations and different people throughout our life, they say, oh, we want you to be family. We want you to be your authentic self. But can you really?
No.
And why do you think people say authenticity, vulnerability, all of these iddies are coming out for us to be, but why do you think we can't be authentic?
Mm-hmm. I'm just gonna drop the bomb.
Drop it.
Right?
Drop it.
Not that, corporations intentionally don't want you to be authentic. They're not built that way.
Ooh.
Right?
Dang. You already feel where this
I know,
is
I told
going.
you I was about to drop it. Workspaces, not even outside of work,
Mm-hmm.
Establishments are they built for everyone?
Mm-hmm. Right. It was, I forgot that movie with, was it Jack Nicholson, Can You Handle the Truth? You can't handle the truth. Yeah. You can't, because how can you expect any employee or anyone that's working for anyone to be authentic when you don't even know what that is? So where do you feel, Mee Hee, that you can be your authentic self? Like, what space?
My home.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
My home, right?
Uh-huh.
Like, it's, my husband knows me. And I'm just going to keep it very real. My parents, right? I grew up in a different time with them, and I was, learning, growing as a human, as an adult, and different things shaped me. When I left, their home at 18 and do my thing in college, I really continued to discover who I was independently, not being told what to do. And so you meet those people, good, bad, and indifferent in your life, right? And you start to learn, again, who you are. We've touched this, I'm approaching 40 here. You really know who you are, what you're about, and what you're not about.
Yeah. And
who you want in your life so that you can continue to really be authentic. Mm-hmm. I struggle, right? I've always struggled in certain spaces of how authentic you really can be. Mm-hmm. Because you and I know not all spaces were created for us.
No,
right?
not at all.
and we've struggled, and we've shared some of those similarities in different spaces that you can't be authentic.
Mm-mm. No, and I think most times when you're in spaces like that, you have to code switch. I'm very silly when I'm comfortable, but I'm a very private person. I'm sure if you talk to any of my coworkers, they would oh my God, you cannot approach her unless you get to know me, right? And then it's a whole different story. But there is a certain armor that you have to wear when you go in, because there is a level of expectations, or if there's not expectations, there are stereotypes that you're already carrying with you before you enter spaces, before you even open your mouth, especially as women of color, that you are already aware of. So I think there have been some times in my 20s when I worked for people that I tried to be my authentic self and it just didn't work out. But as a kid, I had to, and my mother can probably share this information with you. I don't think I'll ever, and I'm probably going to get some comments on this, and this will be interesting to see what people say. I don't really think I have been my authentic self per se until I hit my 40s. Because in my 30s, I was learning myself. 20s, you are kind of figuring things out. You're being wild. You're just trying to figure out who you are in this body and all these things that are going on, your career and things like that. But with 40, you don't really have people, you don't really care as much. But as a kid, I was that kid that was boisterous, that I had a mouth on me, but I was a teacher's pet. I was just trying to find my way, but I just think I had to fight to be what I wanted to be. Mm-hmm. So I was my authentic self per se, but I honestly can say that I'm so comfortable right now. I think this is the only point in my life where I'm just like, yeah, I'm really digging the skin that I'm in. Mm-hmm. So
I feel more and more as I get closer to 40. Just so that the viewers and the listeners know, I am very close to 40. Mm-hmm. I'm like, tomorrow actually will be like 40 days until 40 I'm 40
days and counting.
Yeah, so
okay.
I'm trying to preface this, but getting to a place where you feel authentic, you have to also feel safety wherever you are.
And I would love to talk to people, because I haven't had that experience for myself, but I would love to talk to people who work in workplaces where they feel like they can truly be their authentic self. And if you have workplaces like that, God bless you. That is a blessing, because a lot of us don't. I think now as a new business owner, I want to create that space for people that don't think like me, don't act like me, to really feel like, yeah, I can walk in and be me. But that, again, that is a gift, because like you said, a lot of spaces have not been created for us. So now that we know that as women of color, this is our opinion, we know that most spaces were not created for us. In your own personal time, what do you do as far as activities or to create that space where you can just be you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so one of the things is I love to cook. And I'll say this little backstory is I like to cook Korean food. But again, in the culture I grew up, I didn't help with the cooking. That was not something that I was, I'd watch and I'd observe. But it was almost like a rite of passage that you don't make the kimchi yet, right? And so once I was no longer in my parents' house, I was growing up, I'm becoming an adult, and even then I got married. It was like, I wonder how you make that dish. And it was interesting because I learned how to make Korean food, not from my mom, who makes it very well, right? But I learned through YouTube videos. We love YouTube. Right?
Right.
I learned from listening to others. I learned from purchasing different cookbooks. And went to the international market by myself. I take my husband every now and then.
So hold up, pump the brakes. So wait a minute.
Yeah.
Your parents owned a restaurant, but you didn't learn how to cook until you got married? Until after?
Yeah, so I share some of the stories. So my family's Korean, but we owned a Chinese restaurant. So, and then again, let's be very honest, Chinese food in America is not real Chinese food, right? And so, yes, I may have fried some crab rangoon or, did a packaged to-go orders, things like that, but I never cooked. So coming into my own now, I have my own kitchen staples, that my mom would have had, but it's mine now. I own it. So
she never said, Mee Hee, let me show you how to make this. She never said or ushered you in when she said she was in the kitchen, you were in the kitchen.
She didn't. So the rite of passage to make kimchi, she never showed you how to make it? So
Like-
you learned on YouTube?
Yeah, and of course, like when you're young, you're like, I'm not trying to learn that, right? Like there was a piece of me that also almost rejected my own identity, right? Like that's a whole other episode, right? Coming into my own identity and embracing that I was Korean American. So I think I struggled with that too, of like not really wanting to learn it, but also there's a dynamic with Asian parents. That very familiar, like my mom was, a controlling type of person. I wouldn't really classify her quite as a tiger mom, but the expectations were very high. And so I think there's some dynamic there. I'm going to have to call my therapist. I might need to hash this out, but I think there's a dynamic there of almost not wanting to learn because of the standard of execution I may have failed. So it's better
so you
to
didn't even
not
want
engage,
to, right? Like I don't
right?
even want to engage in all that because I'm not trying to hear her tell me what all I'm doing wrong.
And let's be honest, she still does that. Like
your mother's not
I
watching.
have made my own kimchi, right? And then like I'll take like a batch home where my dad will try, my mom will try, and he's like, "Ooh, Mee Hee, this is good," and she's like, and I'm like, you know what? I'm grown enough now that I don't need her approval.
Right.
And here's the thing. If my dad loves it, I'm good.
You're good.
Because I'm a daddy's girl. But, yeah, so I love to cook Korean food. That's kind of one of my pieces of authenticity. It kind of brings me back in, right? It brings me in. It's the smells. It's the flavors. It's the ingredients that kind of have to marinate, right? Those deep flavors you don't get unless it takes time, those things. So I love that it brings me kind of just into me and what's comfortable. I also love to travel, and I'll put a twist on it. I love to travel alone.
She likes to travel alone without her husband and her son.
Yeah. And you know what? I embrace it. I empower others to do it. If you feel safe about doing it, I do. There'll be moments when I know it's a little bit of an escape, right? We've talked about our identities. We live in these identities, and we got to perform in these identities.
Amen.
That sometimes I don't want any of that.
Yep.
I don't want the responsibility of being a spouse, a mom, a this, a that. I just want to be Mee Hee. No one knows me, right?
Right.
I've done these things too. I went to college where no one from my school went to. It was still in state, but it was like 5 hours away, right? Like, I love immersing myself in those spaces independently because it's a little test too.
Yeah.
Can I live in this new state? I don't know anyone. Can I, find my way? You can. And so I love that. Like, there'll be moments where I'll look at where can I go, where it's a direct flight, a nonstop, get to a destination. I don't know much about it, but I know there's some things that I might enjoy doing, like an art museum or a botanical garden, things that I enjoy doing. I'll just fly and go get a hotel for a weekend, and that's it. And I am just fortunate that my husband's like, go, do it.
Yeah.
Because he embraces, like, I need that.
Yeah.
I need that for me. Because, he can't do everything for me, and I can't do everything for him, and we acknowledge that. And so he loves that I can and like to travel alone. And guess what? He does it too. He might be going to see a friend, but we just encourage that because that's the authentic piece that we don't always get to live out all the time, right? Time, activities, events, all of that, work. So I love doing that. And I do love being alone. So a caveat, I love being just alone. And this is what people ask, like, what do you like to do? Sometimes it's so simple that I just want to go to a store by myself.
Like Target. Yeah.
Come on now.
That's the thing for moms. Like, let me just leave the house, go to Target, get me a nice cup of coffee, and just roam the aisles. And then we'll be upset that we didn't get a cart because we've got 50 things in our hands and we should. Yeah. So just get the cart anyway.
And I think there's a beauty in that because, I'll even go to the grocery store even by myself. Not everybody loves to shop. it's a chore, you know, you got to eat, so you got to get groceries. But there's something that I think it's because I'm just alone, right? I'm alone. I can browse the aisle.
You don't have any distractions. Yeah.
And so anywhere I'm at, I really do being alone. Also, like, you have to be comfortable being alone. Some people are not comfortable being alone, but I embrace the solitude. I've heard like some people, they don't like to be sitting in their own thoughts for too long. Me, I love it. I call it, a colleague of mine used to call it down processing. So it's just time that I get to spend by myself, and I enjoy it. And I mentioned kind of art and museums. I love performance art, visual art. So anything to do with that kind of brings me joy. It's authentic. I love supporting people who are creatives. So whatever that might be, you know, now it's like content creation has exploded, right? So I just really appreciate, like, yes, I can get lost in certain people and their content, but if it's enjoyable, like, I'll support it. So what are some things that you do to keep yourself locked into your authenticity?
It's funny. So for me, I enjoyed cooking. My mom raised me as a single parent. Always been close to my dad, but he had always lived out of state. Only child, but I have two half sisters and a half brother. And my grandparents took care of me a lot of the time because my mom worked. So I just have these memories of, you know, growing up in Detroit, coming home, walking home, because we had to walk to school because we didn't have buses. But I would walk home from school with my little backpack, and I could smell my grandmother's cooking like from 2 blocks away. I kid you not, it felt like 2 blocks away. And so I would just get so excited and run home to the door and just open that door, and the aroma that you spoke of just smelling all the things that she would put together. And my grandmother actually didn't learn how to cook until she got married. She learned how to cook later in life. My grandfather was raised in Mississippi, so they ate all kinds of stuff. So being around home cooking, my friends used to make fun of me because I never had like Kraft macaroni. Like all my cousins, their moms would make boxed food, and my grandfather, we used to go to the market, the Easter market, which is in Detroit, and we would have live chickens running around and crabs in cages. I remember that like distinctly. And we used to go to the bakery and get French bread, and I knew what fresh bread tasted like. I knew what home cooked meal, and my grandmother's macaroni, oh my gosh, like my cousins used to ask her just for a pan, like, what do you want for Christmas? Violet, can you just make us, Auntie Violet, call her Auntie Violet, can you just make us a pan of macaroni? So looking at her at work and the love that she would put into her food, I knew the effects of what her food did for my family because we didn't have a whole lot of money. So our thing was bake. I hate baking to this day. But I remember us, like, she was like, you want a midnight snack? And we would go into the kitchen at like midnight. And I was little too. And I was the only child, so I got away with murder. So I didn't go to bed on time. So we would make brownies, which is something that I love making with her. She made everything from scratch. I would say that was my first experience of a scratch kitchen, right? So for me, my authentic time when I come home, I will go to the market. I like going to the market. I like shopping the outside aisles, looking for fresh goods. Again, I used to be a shopper. And I like to come home with a glass of wine and just start cooking. Now my son loves it because he gets to eat like really good food. But I like to turn on jazz music, have a glass of wine, and just cook. So I love cooking. I like baking healthy dog treats for my dog. Just for me, just having a process, mise en place, having some type of order to my kitchen is something that I take pride in. I like to create. And that's cooking, but I like to thrift shop. I like to repurpose things, right?
What's maybe your most prized repurpose object that you have, like you're really proud of?
I don't have just one because I do so many things. Like I really feel I'm all over the place with my creating, right? I love Facebook Marketplace. Please, it is an addiction. Like Facebook Marketplace, Pinterest, all those places I frequent. If I find something that I think I could do, or if I see it on TV or HGTV
for example, they'll probably see it in another episode, but I bought this wine rack on Facebook Marketplace. A lady had it in her garage. I think I bought it for like $10. I refinished it, and it looks like it wasn't $10.
Right.
So sanded it down. I did some things to it, but those are the things I like to do. And I also like to give things away. So like when I'm done with a bottle of wine, I'll repurpose that bottle and make it into like a, what do you call, a bug repellent, where they could light it and put it on their porches. So
Like a citronella candle.
Citronella can there, thank you. So my neighbors loved it. I mean, I love to repurpose things, bring things back to life. Any type of DIY projects makes me feel like I'm connected to my authentic self, and also to serve. So a lot of people have never been in my home because I'm extremely private, but those that do come to my house, they know they have to be special because I do like to entertain. I love entertaining. I love to make charcuterie boards. I love to, again, like my grandmother, expressing myself through, food and drinks and making people feel comfortable. I know, especially, again, going back to being a woman of color, just living this life, it's hard, right? You go to work, you can't be your authentic self. You're always, you're code switching, you're doing all kinds of things. You got kids, just all kinds of issues. And so for a person to know that they can come to my house and just breathe and just be them, and know that when they come in, they're going to be taken care of and be treated like royalty. My girlfriend was like, oh my God, you're making me a charcuterie board? Yeah, why not? You should expect that. You should expect to feel loved and, welcome. So those are the things that I love doing. I love just spending time outside, outdoors. I love gardening. Anything creative. And I'm an only child, so I have no problem being alone. And me and just God. So I'm good. That is, being creative for me is when I am my most authentic self. Yes. Yeah.
So I'm sure, some of our listeners and viewers are going to want to know, like, what can we share? What are resources out there that you already use that we can suggest? And, I think if tapping into your authentic self, and what makes you authentic, you have to know also what works for you.
Yes, absolutely.
And not one thing's going to work for everyone, because we are all built uniquely. And so what are some resources that you have or have done to tap into your authenticity?
I think the best way for people to find out who their authentic selves, who you are, is to try to start. The first thing to do, I wish I knew this in my 30s, but start trying to remove all the noise around you, right? You have to, therapy helps. I have a therapist, Mee Hee has a therapist. Hopefully your therapist will take you through different exercises to where you can start canceling out the noise around you, right? Meaning kids, issues, stress. Church can be your therapy. I mean, whatever you need to do, start figuring out, how can I cancel out noise? For me, I have a prayer closet. I'll share a picture later if we have an episode. But I really had to start training myself and disciplining myself to cancel out noise and figure out who I was outside of the labels, who I was outside of being Jackson's mom, being a DEI programmer, all these different things. Who are you? What was that? Was that Lion King? Who are you? And then once you do that, it could be meditation is a great way. Therapy, yoga, hot yoga is a wonderful way to kind of center yourself. But there's some great resources to kind of learn yourself. For me, it's been therapy, it's been cooking, but what about you? What are some of the things that you would share?
Yeah, I think, since we spend so much of our time in a workplace and in that environment, one of my former workplaces, we all took a Gallup Strengths Finder assessment.
Ooh, okay.
And it locks into and taps into your unique strengths, not anyone else's. It's not about weaknesses. It's it's about all these strengths that you inherently have. And any personality assessment that is about your understanding and awareness of yourself. that to me is foremost, right? Like, why are these articles about the older you get, you really know who you are, right? Like, there's something that if you tap into understanding who you are, that to me is just key in continuing to like live every day authentically, because you know what's not going to serve you, and that helps in keeping some of that noise away. So just honing in, and some of them are free, they're online, taking like different assessments, like there's different colors that you naturally gravitate towards and they have meaning. So taking one of that was pretty pivotal, and then I retook it, right? So the great thing is, you know, emotional intelligence can change and you can continue to keep growing in it.
Yes.
And I think that's also a powerful tool in your authenticity. And then, like, tapping into what are the things that helps release dopamine for you. I've been, like, reading some articles, and guess what I need to do more of?
What?
Exercise, okay? Okay, that's a whole other,
Clearly.
like, you know, as we age as women, our bodies are changing, our
Yes.
hormones are changing, and sometimes where do we go to understand that?
And I can't blame this on my 14-year-old son. That was 14 years ago. This is not Jackson weight. This is eating very
I try it too. My son's 7, like,
I hate when people say that, oh, I got kids. Okay,
I
I know plenty of people that had 50 kids and they look absolutely amazing, so that's not an excuse.
Yes.
But here's the thing too, I think people need to understand. You have to come out or go outside of your comfort zone in order for you to find your authentic self. If you keep doing the same things that you're always doing, how do you feel that you can get a different result? It's not going to happen.
Nope.
So I hope with this podcast that we will help you tap into who you really are. You really don't know. Like, I like to do adventurous things. And for me, it was a pleasure for my son to see me jump out of an airplane. Like, I did that. And he was like so excited. I have pictures. This was a long time ago. I was living in Atlanta. But I did that, and he was just so excited to see his mommy doing some like amazing things. Now, he's just like his daddy. He ain't jumping out of no planes. He like, that's great for you, Mom. But the point is to expose your kids to different things, because if they're not exposed, they don't know what they want to do or what they would do or what they wouldn't do. Would do or wouldn't do. Yeah. So I just think exposure is everything. You don't know what you don't know. Try new things. And if it's not for you, then at least you can say you tried it.
Yeah. And you don't have to do them ever again.
Right.
Right? That it's not for you, right? That's
Right.
not gonna bring you joy, so you don't have to do it again. But there is something to that, like being open to trying something out of your comfort zone. Because if we live in our comfort, you don't know, and you're not exposed to different ideas, thoughts, perspectives that could actually have a positive impact in your life. So I mean, right? Like,
If you allow fear to rule your life, you will never find your authentic self. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I'm sure we'll hear it in the comments. But if you live in a life of fear, how do you know who you are? Right? We're supposed to fear not, right? So I would encourage you, maybe hopefully after you look at this episode, we have planted a seed in you to say, you know what, maybe I should try something different. And I'm not saying you got to jump out of a plane. We're not saying that. But maybe it's that cookie that you have been hearing about that you really wanted to try. Or maybe it's a certain wine that you're like, oh, I just drink red wine, but it's something that may be refreshing for the summer that you might want to try, and it's just outside your comfort zone. So maybe we should challenge our viewers to try something different, to really try to tap into who they really are and finding their authentic selves.
absolutely. Sometimes identifying what's not for you gets you closer to more of being authentic.
Ooh, look at that. She's dropping wisdom.
Ooh. So thanks for joining this episode, and definitely join us next Thursday for a new episode on DIY Try or Buy.
Don't forget to like or share. And this is the podcast that you didn't know you needed.